And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum, and speaking with Tim Sargent. He is the Director of Domestic Policy Program at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Tim, one of the underlying, I wouldn't say criticisms, but observations you've made in the past is really a question mark. Is the modern public service, of which you were an esteemed member, is the modern public service in Canada capable of delivering meaningful services to Canadians?
Well, that's the big question. Certainly, as I've said, federal government's grown a lot. We've got 40% more civil servants than we had 10 years ago. We don't seem to be getting a lot for it. It's going to be really difficult for the public service to deliver a very meaningful change unless the public service, it's not just a question of cutting the size of public services, it's got to get more efficient. And that means it's got to embrace new technology, particularly artificial intelligence, new ways of doing things. The problem, of course, is innovation requires risk, it requires political will, requires bureaucratic will, requires thinking out of the box. And civil servants aren't necessarily very good at that. They're not necessarily trained to do that. They're trained to avoid risks and make sure that the rules are followed. And so it's going to be a very, very tall order for the federal government to do what organizations across the Western world have had to do in the private sector, and to really look at their business model and really radically change the how of how they deliver services.
I was going to raise artificial intelligence with you as well. I'm glad you talked about it, because to me, there's at least a window of opportunity that hasn't existed for a long time where you could actually rethink and transform public services, deliver better products to people, to Canadians, at a more sustainable cost. Is that the way that you view AI as well?
Absolutely. Government, probably more than any other business, is an information business. It's about enforcing rules. It's about taking in information and making decisions and governing on the basis of that. The ICT revolution and now artificial intelligence should be reducing the cost of government. We should have actually seen the cost of government go down at the same time as the output of government goes up. So I think artificial intelligence is a real opportunity for government, probably more than any other sector. You look at things like just giving checks out for EI, OAS, and dealing with the public to do that. It should be very easy for people to go on to get service very quickly to using AI. It should make it a lot easier for the government to decide who's eligible for a particular program, and to make sure that they get the money that they're entitled to. So yeah, it should definitely be a huge opportunity for government.
Yeah, I guess we're in the stage now of talking about solutions. AI is obviously one of them. What else do you see on the transformation agenda for government services that would make a difference?
So government should only do what only government should do. There are a lot of really important things that the federal government in particular has to focus on. No one else is going to defend the country. No one else is going to worry about border security. Nobody else can run the immigration system. These are core things that the federal government has to do. Unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 10 years is the federal government getting involved in a whole variety of things, from pharmacare to daycare, areas where the federal government really doesn't know very much. It doesn't have experience in those areas. It's the provinces that actually have the knowledge and capability there. So what I'd like to see is the federal government really trying to stick to its knitting, and other levels of government too. They need to focus on what is it the government needs to do, and then the things that government doesn't need to do can then be done better by the private sector. Like any business, you've got to, what are you in business to do? What are your strengths? What's your comparative advantage? Focus on those, and let other people do the things that they're best at.
And it's not only the private sector, but as you alluded to, a lot of these functions are in the provincial area of jurisdiction, and yet the federal government has been encroaching on it for years.
Absolutely. We see it in the environmental area. We see it in healthcare. I mean, the Constitution is actually quite clear about the delivery of the division of labor between the federal government and the provincial government, and yet over the years, the federal government has rarely seen a provincial issue that it doesn't want to get involved with. Housing would be another example. It's almost everything the provinces do. We've now got the federal government looking over their shoulders and looking to play as well.
Yes, I remember the days where Stephen Harper, Prime Minister Harper, was loath to get into funding municipalities. He saw where this was going to lead, and now look at it now. It's billions upon billions of dollars. Tim, we're going to take another break. We're going to be back with other questions for you after these messages.